dangerous precedent to begin that process here. You start down that path, others may follow it, you end up with a court then that may lack that kind of balance. Now, obviously, as someone who's pro-choice and have been my entire public life and career, I feel very strongly about Roe versus Wade. I would not want a justice to be appointed who would even think about overturning that. But I want to be very careful here. But I want to be careful about making sure that I know the person. I'm not just looking at people I don't know or don't understand their background, so I have a very good feel of where they're going to be on these matters. Not the people here, when they make the statement that they will uphold precedent, and they raise their right hand before the Judiciary Committee and make that commitment and then violate that commitment, that I find highly offensive. That will not happen in a Dodd administration, I promise.
All right, let's go through the whole panel. I want everybody to weigh in. This is an important question that was raised. I'll start with Senator Biden. Would you insist that any nominee for the U.S. Supreme Court supported abortion rights for women?
Suzanne's decided. I'm not answering her question. I'm answering the question of the woman who is there, okay? And number one. And then I'll answer Suzanne's question.
Well, let's ask the woman. Do you want him to answer that question?
Do you want me to answer your question?
I would like for you to answer both questions.
I will answer both. Answer your question first. Your question first is, I've presided over more Supreme Court justices than anyone in American history, number one. Number two, I have taken on those justices who in fact show no balance. They are ideologues. We have enough ideologues. We have enough professors on the bench. We have enough. I want someone who ran for dog catcher. I want someone, literally, not a joke. When Hillary's husband asked me for his advice when he was appointing people, I wanted to go to people, and so did he. We couldn't, 4 people turned it down. We wanted to get someone who, in fact, knew what it was like to live life, knew what it was as not some intellectual feast. And by the way, the next person that's appointed on the Biden administration is going to be a woman. We don't have enough women on the bench, number one. Number two, Suzanne Malveau's question. I would not appoint anyone who did not understand that Section 5 of the 14th Amendment and the Liberty Clause of the 14th Amendment provided a right to privacy. That's the question I'd ask him. If that is answered correctly, that is the case, then it answers the question, which means they would support Roe v. Wade.
Let's go down the whole panel, and if you could give me a short yes or no, would you insist on a Supreme Court nominee supporting abortion?
I would have diversity as a prime criteria, but I would also ask my nominee. This is what I would ask. Number one, do you believe Roe versus Wade is settled law? Number two, do you support the right to privacy? Number three, do you support civil rights? Number four, do you support what you asked, education, school equalization? If the answer is no to those questions that basically say, is it settled law or not, you want to call it a litmus test, fine. Those would be the judges that I would appoint to the Supreme Court.
Thank you, Governor. Congressman?
A Kucinich appointment to the Supreme Court would have a litmus test on abortion. It's a question of a woman's right to choose and a right to privacy. But a president has to do more than that. A president has to be a healer, and this has been one of the great divides in our country. And so I want to also let the American people know that I'll stand for prenatal care, postnatal care, child care, a living wage, universal health care, sex education, birth control. We can make abortions less necessary if we have a healer in the White House, and we can also protect a woman's right to choose. We can do both.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator Clinton? Senator Clinton, would this be a sine qua non for you that any nominee you name to the Supreme Court would have to share your view on abortion?
Well, they'd have to share my view about privacy, and I think that goes hand in hand. Privacy, in my opinion, is embedded in our Constitution. I mean, what does it mean to have a right to free speech or the right to worship as you choose if you also don't have the right to be left alone, to have that privacy that goes with being an American? So it would be absolutely critical. And I, like Senator Biden...
The answer is yes.
Yes, the answer is yes.
Okay, all right.
But I just want to say Senator Biden really deserves a lot of plaudits because he knows this issue forwards and backwards. And I think it's important to have a president who understands the intricate connections of our branches of government and the Constitution. I think that's one of the great tragedies of George Bush's presidency, is he didn't really understand the way our government was supposed to work.
Thank you. Senator Obama used to be a professor of law.
I would not appoint somebody who doesn't believe in the right to privacy. But you're right, Wolf. I taught constitutional law for 10 years. And when you look at what makes a great Supreme Court justice, it's not just the particular issue and how they rule, but it's their conception of the court. And part of the role of the court is that it is going to protect people who may be vulnerable in the political process, the outsider, the minority, those who are vulnerable, those who don't have a lot of clout. And part of what I want to find in a Supreme Court justice, and Joe's exactly right, sometimes we're only looking at academics or people who've been in the courts. If we can find people who have life experience and they understand what it means to be on the outside, what it means to have the system not work for them, that's the kind of person I want on the Supreme Court.
Thank you, Senator. We heard from Senator Dodd, so let Senator Edwards go ahead. Would you insist that nominees support abortion?
I would insist that they recognize the right to privacy and recognize Roe v. Wade as settled law. But I want to go beyond what some others have said here, because it is so crucial. If you grew up like I did in the segregated South and you saw how important it was to have federal judges who had some backbone and were willing to stand up against popular opinion. We had a judge that desegregated the public schools in North Carolina, in Charlotte, North Carolina. He literally had to have armed guards take him from home to work and home each day. That's the kind of courage and strength we need in a United States Supreme Court justice.
Thank you, Senator. All right, Suzanne.
Frank Piconti is a student here. Frank, what is your question?
Whether it's the continuing violence in Iraq, or if it's a potential confrontation with Iran, or even the emerging instability in Pakistan, nothing seems to be getting any better in the Middle East. It only seems to be getting worse. And if the upcoming election is anything like the last two elections, if any of you is elected, in all likelihood you'll be presiding over an extremely divided electorate. Almost half the country is not going to agree with you on the direction you want to take this country to meet those challenges in the Middle East. So my question to you is, assuming you are elected, the day after you take the oath of office, what message will you offer the whole country to unite all of us behind you so that you can see us through this period of transition that we're in?
I'd like to throw that to Senator Obama. Senator Obama, you said on a TV interview just this past weekend you didn't believe that Senator Clinton was able to unite this country. Why do you believe she can't?
No, that's not what I said. What I said was I thought I could do it better. That's why I'm running for president. If I didn't think I could do it better, then I wouldn't be running for president, because the stakes are too high, just as we heard. Here's what I would do immediately. I would convene a continuous advisory meeting with not just Democrats, but Republicans, specifically on national security issues. Because there is a long tradition that our differences in foreign policy should end at the water's edge. And we have lost that tradition, and there's some wonderful Republicans, Dick Lugar, Chuck Hagel. There are a group of them who have continued that tradition, but we have lost it because of the polarization of the Bush administration. So I want Republicans and Democrats and independents to understand that as president, I am going to want to go before the entire world and say, America's back. We're ready to lead. But we're not just going to lead militarily. We're going to lead by building schools in the Middle East that teach math and science instead of hatred of Americans. We're going to lead by shutting down Guantanamo and restoring habeas corpus in this country so that we offer them an example.
Thank you.
We're going to lead by talking to our enemies and not just our friends. And I believe that there are a lot of Republicans who hunger for that kind of bipartisan approach. That's what I will offer as President of the United States.
Senator Clinton, thank you, Senator. Senator Clinton, some have suggested, including some on this stage, that you are simply too polarizing to unite the country if you were elected president. What do you say to those critics?
Well, I say that I am running to be the president of the entire country. You know, when I started running for the Senate in New York, I heard the same things. And what I did was to reach out to Republicans, Democrats, independents, rural, urban, because we've got to begin to work together. That's what I've tried to do in the Senate, working across party lines, trying to find common ground. To go back to Chris, you know, working to get health care for Guard and reservists with a colleague, a Republican colleague from South Carolina. You know, you have to look to find common ground, and it is the responsibility of a leader to try to make that possible. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be differences. because there are. We're not going to wake up the day after the election and not believe what we believe and not see the world as we see it.